Hey guys, my name is Brodie and today I'll be showing you a WG101 on a game called Path of Exile, which is a free-to-play action RPG set on the island of Rayclass. It was developed by New Zealand company Grinding Gear Games and released in full on the 23rd of October 2013. Since then, it has gone through 3 major updates, with the most recent, The Awakening, being the largest of them all. This WG101 will help newcomers to the game prepare themselves for the horrors that await them on Rayclass and within The Awakening, and may even help some veteran players better understand the core gameplay and functions that exist. Firstly, when entering the world of Path of Exile, you'll be presented with a choice of which character class to pick. Classes in Path of Exile are a lot more fluid than those in other RPG games, allowing for complete freedom when deciding how you would like to play your character. There are 7 characters, with 6 being available from the start, and each character is aligned with 3 base attributes to a different degree. These attributes are Strength, Intelligence, and Dexterity. The 3 core classes are the Marauder, Witch, and Ranger, who each strongly align to one of the base attributes and are less aligned to the remaining 2. There are then what I like to call the hybrid classes, the Templar, Duelist, and Shadow, who are equally aligned with 2 of the attributes, such as Strength and Intelligence, and less aligned with the remaining attribute. The 7th class, the Scion, is aligned equally with all 3 attributes, providing a very neutral starting point for building a new character. However, the Scion must be unlocked through reaching the 3rd act of the game, and as such, new players will not have access to it. Some of the things that are constant between each character class are the inventory size and equipment slots. Each character has the same sized inventory and can equip up to 4 weapons, a pair of gloves, a set of boots, a piece of head armor, chest armor, an amulet, 2 rings, and a belt. As with many other action RPGs, Path of Exile features both a health and a mana pool, which can be replenished through the use of flasks. Rather than have consumable items to replenish these pools, flasks are randomized items that recharge during gameplay and can provide additional effects other than just health or mana replenishment. Each character can equip up to 5 flasks from the beginning of the game, as long as they meet the prerequisites of the specific flask. In order to better suit new players to the game, we will only be focusing on the 3 main classes today, as they are easier to understand and play with for those new to the game. One common misconception with the idea of character classes is that they will effectively dictate how you play the game. In some RPGs this is true, however Path of Exile is different in that all 7 character classes use the same skill tree, a massive web of over 1300 passive skills, and the character class chosen will define where the player starts on the skill tree. For instance, the Marauder is the character class aligned with the Strength attribute, and is generally seen as a tanky melee character. However, with the freedom provided in Path of Exile, we can craft the Marauder into anything from a dagger-throwing life stealer to a magical lightning spellcaster. The Witch is aligned with the Intelligence attribute, and will more commonly be seen casting spells or controlling minions. Finally, the Ranger is aligned with Dexterity, which allows for faster, more accurate attacks and the dodging of enemy attacks. The way you build your character is entirely up to you. The game may nudge you in a certain direction with the character classes, but there is no real restriction on what class can use any items aside from meeting the base attribute requirements and XP level requirements, which are increased by leveling up and using passive skill points. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is the active skills in Path of Exile. When creating the game, the developers decided that they wanted to itemize as many aspects of the game as possible. They itemized active skills in the form of skill gems, meaning that any character can use any skill in the game by socketing the skills gem into any equipped armor item with the correctly colored socket. Sockets are generated randomly based on the level and statistics of the item, but any skill gem can fit in any socket as long as the colors match. Sockets can also be linked, which allows for the use of support gems, but this is a feature for a little later in the game. Gems can also level up independently of the player, and this can increase their effects, mana cost, and attribute requirements. In addition to itemizing the majority of the game, the developers also ensured that as many of these items as possible were randomized, from the color and amount of their sockets to the values and types of modifications on pieces of equipment. This makes general gameplay exciting, as the next item to drop could be amazing for the character build you're aiming for, or of very high value. Items come in 4 different rarity levels, ranging from normal items with no additional modifiers, to magic items with up to 2 modifiers, then rare items with up to 6 modifiers, and finally unique items, which can be compared to keystone passive skills in the sense that they can have a huge effect on how the character is played with a unique item equipped. There is only 2 cases in the game where a specific enemy will drop a specific item. This is limited to the very first enemy you face, who will always drop your first skill gem, and items that drop as part of a quest. In order to build your first character, you want to choose something to start around. However, as the game progresses, you may or may not need to shape your build around the progressive difficulty you are presented with. For example, when I created my Marauder, Mr. Thunk, he was going to have a massive life pool with huge regenerative capabilities, with melee attacks that would steal even more life from his enemies. This was strong enough in the early game, but I found as time went on, it was taking me far too long to kill enemies. As a result, I completely changed my build, from a tanky melee Marauder into a totem casting support character who uses blood magic rather than mana to cast. My high life regen allows for infinite casting of any spells I want to use, as well as providing good defensive capabilities. Now, Mr. Thunk can clear out packs of enemies with ease. Not everyone's character will survive the higher levels in its original form, and you will rarely need to go through a change as drastic as mine, but the main idea to keep in mind is to have fun with your characters. The game's difficulty progresses with each new area you enter as the monster level increases, and this progression continues across a series of 4 acts and 3 difficulty levels. You begin in Act 1 of normal difficulty and must complete the following acts in order to reach the next difficulty level. Each act has a town which is a safe haven for players, where no enemies spawn and there are NPCs the player can talk to in order to receive quests, discover more about the story of Path of Exile, or buy and sell items. There is also a stash for you to keep items in an area separate to your character's own inventory space, and a waypoint which allows for fast travel between other waypoints you have discovered. Items can be traded to NPCs in return for scrolls and orbs, which are items that function as the currency in Path of Exile. These currency items can also drop as loot and come in many different forms, some being much rarer than others. The reason for there being different types of currency items is that the orbs can also be used to modify almost any item in the game, and different orbs have different effects, such as changing the rarity of the item or modifying the colour of its sockets. Therefore, orbs function not only as currency but can also be used as crafting tools too, modifying your items in order to improve your character. This WG101 has hopefully given you basic understanding of the core game features within Path of Exile, but while there is still much more for you to learn, this should be enough to create and build your first character and explore the island of Rayclass. Path of Exile allows for a lot of technical building of your character, however the main idea is to have fun with the game as you experiment with lots of exciting skills and unique items.